Most people don't go broke because of one big mistake. They go broke slowly, quietly, through hundreds of invisible choices they never question. Subscriptions they forgot about. Dinners they don't remember. Clothes that impressed no one. Random upgrades, minor luxuries, quick dopamine hits. All justified in the moment, all subtracting in the background. And over time, those tiny leaks become a financial flood. Napoleon Hill warned us. Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts and extends to your habits. And that includes the habit of where your money goes. If you don't track every dollar, you're not in control. You're guessing. And guesswork is the death of financial power. In this video, we're going to install a new operating system in your mind. One where you track your money like a millionaire. And you eliminate anything that doesn't make you powerfully, consciously, unapologetically happy. Not because you're cheap, but because your money now serves your purpose. Your freedom. Your expansion. Your inner peace. You'll learn how to see every expense as a mirror of your values. Build a system to track and decide with precision. Cut habits that drain your future in the name of living. Separate emotional avoidance from true joy. And how to feel wealthier by owning less, but owning it consciously. Because the truth is simple. You can't attract more if you disrespect what you already have. And nothing reveals respect faster than where you send your money each day. This isn't about being frugal. This is about being awake. It's about looking at your account with clarity, not fear. About choosing what to keep, and having the courage to delete everything that doesn't elevate your life or move you forward. This is a purge. Not just of expenses, but of noise, distractions, emotional clutter, and invisible leaks in your identity. Because a millionaire mindset doesn't just earn more, it holds more. It circulates with intention. It refuses to fund mediocrity. It builds a life that feels light, focused, and sharp. So if you've been wondering why your income rises but your stress never falls, if you're tired of feeling like the money's coming in but slipping away, if you want to stop living like you're rich while dying slowly in financial fog, this video will snap you out of it. It will challenge how you see spending, pleasure, discipline, and freedom. And by the end, you won't just have more control. You'll feel cleaner, clearer, and more powerful. Because your money will finally reflect what truly matters. Let's begin. Most people think they have a spending problem because they buy too much. That's not it. The real problem is they don't know what they're buying, and worse, they don't know why. They can't tell you what's coming out of their account on the 7th of every month. They couldn't name more than 2 subscriptions they're paying for. They don't check their numbers until something bounces. And they don't track expenses until they're already overwhelmed. That's not money mismanagement. That's identity-level disconnection. And here's the brutal truth. You will never build real wealth if you're not aware of where your money goes, day by day, choice by choice, emotion by emotion. Because what you allow in your spending becomes a mirror of what you allow in your life. It's not about the dollar amount. It's about the frequency and the unconsciousness behind it. Let's break this down. The slow bleed. How tiny leaks destroy massive potential. You don't need to lose $10,000 to go broke. You just need to leak $10 a day, thoughtlessly, for years. Let's do the math. $10 per day equals $300 per month. $300 per month equals $3,600 per year. Add a few small splurges per week, and that becomes $500, $700/month. Now stretch that over 5 years. You've burned through $20,000 to $40,000, and you don't even remember how. That's a down payment. That's a business fund. That's freedom, drained by invisible nonsense you never stopped to question. Not because you were reckless, but because you weren't present. This is the real cost of not tracking, not just dollars lost, but options lost. You wanted to quit your job. You wanted to travel. You wanted to invest in that coaching program, that course, that business. But you couldn't afford it. Not because you didn't have the money, but because you gave it away in micro-decisions you never truly made. And here's the worst part. Most of it didn't even make you happy. The lie of modern spending. It's just convenience. Every unnecessary expense wears the same disguise. It's just $8. I needed a break. Everyone does it. It's for self-care. It's a reward. But your bank account doesn't care about justifications. It tracks data, not emotions. And what the numbers reveal is this. You're constantly sacrificing long-term meaning for short-term numbness. That's not convenience. That's financial sedation. It looks like ordering food instead of cooking what you already bought, subscribing to a platform you haven't used in 3 months, buying a new outfit for a confidence boost you could have gotten by finishing a task, clicking buy not because you need it, but because you don't want to feel bored, anxious, or inadequate. Your expenses are not just financial. They're emotional footprints. And when your emotions drive your purchases, your money stops working for you. It starts managing you. The myth of earning more. Here's where most people try to fix it. I just need to earn more. But if you don't master control at $3,000 per month, you'll lose control at $30,000. Because income amplifies patterns, it doesn't change them. People think more money will solve their lack of discipline. But what it actually does is give them more power to mismanage at scale. This is why some people make 6 figures and feel broke. Not because the math is off, because the mental habits stayed the same. You don't rise to your income. You rise to the level of clarity, structure, and consciousness you've installed. So the solution is not just make more. The solution is take radical control of what you already have. And that starts now. The shift from unconscious spending to conscious value. Here's the new filter. If it doesn't make you powerfully, joyfully, consciously happy, it gets cut. Not reduced. Not negotiated. Cut. No more paying for things that don't move you. No more tolerating expenses that aren't aligned with your goals, your energy, your peace. This is not minimalism for aesthetics. This is minimalism for expansion. Because every dollar you cut from what drains you can now be redirected to what builds you. That unused app? Gone. That just because coffee you don't even finish? Gone. That extra takeout meal that adds bloat, guilt, and fog? Gone. And in their place, you pay off a debt. You buy a book that shifts your thinking. You save for a course that elevates your skills. You put money into your emergency fund and sleep better. You invest in tools, training, or systems that return value. You start using money like a leader, not a follower. Not someone who reacts to every urge, but someone who allocates with purpose. Action plan. The brutal audit. Every person serious about building wealth must do this at least once. Track every expense, manually, for 30 days. Not just the big ones. Every single purchase. Write it down. One by one. Not in an app. In a notebook. Because when your hand writes it, your mind owns it. Then categorize it. Aligned and essential. Comfortable but optional. Totally unnecessary. Actively harmful. Next, ask the question that changes everything. Would I pay for this again if I had to earn the money manually, hour by hour? If the answer is no, it's gone. No exceptions. No emotional negotiation. No guilt. This is about becoming sovereign. Becoming someone whose money is a mirror of their clarity, not their chaos. In the next block, We'll dive into how Hill saw money as a servant, not a master, and how treating your expenses like employees, not emotional comforts, can completely reshape your relationship with wealth. Because you don't just want more money. You want to become the kind of person who deserves, manages, multiplies, and respects it. And that begins when you stop letting $9 destroy $90,000. No more leaks. Now, power only. Napoleon Hill once said, "Money is a terrible master but an excellent servant." This isn't a poetic quote. It's a life philosophy, and one of the most misunderstood. When money is your servant, it does what you tell it to do. It obeys. It supports your vision. But when money becomes your master, it commands your time, your choices, your stress levels, and eventually your future. You start waking up every morning not to build something meaningful, but to make ends meet. You start saying yes to things you hate because you can't afford to say no. And worst of all, you stop dreaming big, because your life is ruled by what's in your account today. That's not freedom. That's silent slavery. You might think you have a money problem, but often it's an identity problem. Because people who don't see themselves as leaders allow money to lead them. And people who never took full ownership of their finances end up being owned by them. Now here's the shift. You're the CEO, and every dollar you touch is your employee. So the question is, are your dollars working hard for your goals, or are they just wandering around, wasting time? Every single dollar should have a job, a role, a mission, a return. Whether it's paying off a debt, funding your education, saving for your freedom, building your business, or even giving you a well-earned moment of joy, it needs to serve a clear purpose. If it doesn't, it becomes a distraction, or worse, a liability. This is where most people go wrong. They think managing money is about budgets and calculators, but it's really about leadership. And leaders don't spend. They allocate. When you wake up and check your account, don't ask, "What can I afford?" Ask, "What needs to be empowered today?" That mental shift, from spender to allocator, is what separates the wealthy from the constantly struggling. Now let's talk about emotional spending, because Hill was crystal clear. You can't become wealthy if you don't first master your emotions. Most people don't spend money because they need something. They spend because they're trying to escape something. Boredom, anxiety, loneliness, insecurity, comparison, stress. And that's exactly what modern marketing preys on. They don't sell you products, they sell you relief. Every ad you see is designed to bypass logic and speak directly to your emotional pain points. Buy this to feel better. Upgrade this to feel worthy. Click this to stop thinking. But every time you hand your money to avoid a feeling, you're reinforcing the idea that comfort is more important than freedom. Hill would tell you, in his stern, methodical way, that wealth begins with emotional discipline. Because when your money is used to treat symptoms instead of build systems, you never get ahead. You just stay numb and broke. So here's the new standard. If it doesn't serve your future or bring you deep, powerful, lasting joy, it's gone. No more just because purchases. No more retail therapy. No more tolerating subscriptions, services, or splurges that don't add value to your life. This isn't about deprivation. It's about alignment. You are not here to nickel and dime yourself into mediocrity. You're here to reclaim your authority over every dollar that enters your world. From this moment forward, you will treat money as a soldier, a disciplined force in service of your mission. That morning coffee that costs $5 every day? Ask yourself, is it fueling my greatness or my autopilot? That monthly app you haven't opened in 3 months? Is it building my mind or draining my wealth? And here's the daily practice. Each morning, take 5 minutes to ask yourself, where did my money go yesterday? Did it build me or numb me? What adjustments will I make today? Write it down. Not in an app. Write it by hand. Because what your hand writes, your mind remembers. This isn't budgeting. This is warrior-level awareness. And if you want freedom, not just financial, but emotional and spiritual, you must become the kind of person who knows where every dollar lives and dies. Napoleon Hill didn't just want you to get rich. He wanted you to become so precise, so conscious, and so self-directed that riches became inevitable. And that starts not with how much you make, but with how seriously you treat what you already have. The goal is not to hoard money. The goal is to deploy it like a general on the battlefield of life. Every dollar you waste is a soldier who could have fought for your future, but was never given the chance. It's time to give your money orders, and it's time for it to obey. One of the most dangerous lies about money is the idea that small things don't matter. A coffee here, a subscription there, a $20 impulse buy on a Saturday. You tell yourself, it's nothing. But Hill would tell you, everything is something, especially when repeated. He believed that wealth is never an accident. It is the result of compounding discipline. Just like compounding interest builds a fortune, compounding decisions, tiny ones, consistent ones, build a financial identity. And here's what you need to understand. Every transaction is a reflection of belief. When you buy without thinking, you reinforce the belief that your future isn't important. When you don't track your spending, you signal to your subconscious that control doesn't matter. When you ignore small leaks in your budget, you train your mind to tolerate waste. So stop asking, how much did it cost? Start asking, what did it cost me to ignore this? Did it cost you focus? Did it cost you confidence? Did it cost you the opportunity to invest that same money in yourself? Money isn't just about math. It's a mirror. And the way you handle it is showing you who you are, or at least who you've been until now. Napoleon Hill emphasized the power of autosuggestion, repeating thoughts with emotional intensity until they take root. But most people are unknowingly using autosuggestion against themselves. Every time you make an unconscious purchase, you're repeating a powerful suggestion to your mind. I don't need to be intentional. I don't need to be focused. I don't need to lead. And then you wonder why opportunities slip through your fingers. Why you feel like you're always one step behind. Why even when you earn more, you still have nothing to show for it. It's not about the money. It's about the message. That's why the simple act of tracking your expenses is far more than just organizing your budget. It's the psychological declaration that you are in charge. Hill would say, you must gain mastery over your money, or the lack of it will forever master you. This means you don't just record your spending. You examine it. You dissect it like a surgeon. You ask questions like, what emotion was I feeling before this purchase? What story was I telling myself? Would I make the same decision again with clarity? And then you refine. You subtract what doesn't serve. You strengthen what does. You sharpen your inner standard. Because ultimately, success isn't about perfection. It's about consistency in alignment. And that alignment begins with one question. Is this expense supporting the person I'm becoming? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter how small it is. It's a seed of sabotage. But if the answer is yes, even if the expense isn't necessary, it becomes an investment in your identity. For example, spending money on a book that elevates your thinking? That's not a cost. That's expansion. Canceling a streaming service you barely use? That's not about saving $15. That's about reclaiming focus. Choosing to meal prep instead of ordering out? That's not just nutrition. That's structure, self-respect, intention. So start seeing your finances not as numbers, but as data points of self-awareness. And when you build that awareness, a new energy enters your life. Momentum. You begin to see where your money was leaking, and you patch it. You begin to see where money could flow, and you guide it. You begin to trust yourself with money, because you're finally paying attention. This is not about becoming obsessed with pennies. It's about becoming obsessed with who you're becoming. The truth is, if you can't manage $1,000 with precision and purpose, the universe will never trust you with $100,000. Because the amount doesn't change the principle, only the stakes. So today, right now, you begin a new chapter. From this point forward, you are not someone who wonders where their money went. You are someone who tells it exactly where to go, and why. You are no longer a passive observer of your financial life. You are the architect, the commander, the investor in your own destiny. And it all begins with control. Not to restrict you, to set you free. There comes a moment when every serious wealth builder has to confront a painful but liberating truth. Not all spending is equal. You've been taught to think in terms of price, cheap or expensive, affordable or not. But the question that actually matters is, does this bring a return? Because in the world of real success, and Hill was ruthless about this, you don't just spend money. You allocate resources. The difference is huge. Spending is emotional. Allocating is strategic. Spending happens in the heat of the moment. Allocating is governed by clarity, values, and vision. And here's the new rule. If an expense doesn't move you forward, it pulls you back. There is no neutral. It might look like just lunch. It might feel like just a few subscriptions. It might seem like just this once. But those moments add up. And more dangerously, they shape your identity. They form your habits. And they either build or destroy your sense of control. So let's redefine what an expense is. There are three kinds. Investments. These are the things that multiply your capacity, increase your energy, sharpen your mind, or accelerate your results. Things like books, training, tools that enhance your work, high-performance health choices, coaching, masterminds, or systems that save you time. These are assets in disguise. You don't lose money, you gain expansion. Functional costs. These are the neutral, necessary expenses that support your life. Rent, food, transport, utilities. Even these can be optimized. You don't just pay, you consciously choose. Leakage. This is where dreams go to die. Impulse buys, emotional comforts, status symbols, boredom scrolls that end in checkout pages. This is what Napoleon Hill would call the enemy of purpose. It disguises itself as pleasure, but leaves behind guilt, distraction, and erosion of focus. The tragedy is that most people don't realize how much of their money is leaking. They think they have a money problem. What they really have is a leakage problem. You cannot build wealth with a leaking bucket. It doesn't matter how much you pour in. It will never accumulate if it's dripping from a dozen invisible holes. That's why the cure isn't just earning more. It's first stopping the silent sabotage. So here's what you do. Take 1 week, just one, and document every dollar you spend. Don't wait till the end of the week. Track it as it happens. Write down not just what you spent, but how you felt before and after. You'll notice patterns. That coffee wasn't about caffeine. It was about comfort. That online order wasn't about need. It was about escape. That dinner out wasn't about food. It was about distraction from stress. And once you see the pattern, you take back your power. Because now you're no longer at the mercy of automatic habits. You're the one driving. From there, you make your first cuts. Start small. Not because the amount is small, but because it builds confidence. Cancel one thing that doesn't serve your vision. Replace one habit that bleeds energy. Celebrate not the saving, but the clarity. That's what real wealth begins with. Crystal clear awareness of what serves and what distracts. Now imagine doing this every week. You begin to live from alignment. You begin to feel light, unburdened by things you don't truly value. You begin to build a sense of peace that no product can give you, because it's rooted in self-respect. Hill warned that drifting was one of the greatest dangers to a person's destiny. To drift is to live without intentional direction, to buy without thinking, to choose without checking your values, to spend time, energy, and money without questioning their impact. When you eliminate what's superfluous, you eliminate drift. You reclaim command. And in that clarity, a strange and powerful shift happens. You start to enjoy your money more, not less. Because every dollar you do spend now has meaning. It carries intention. It brings joy, usefulness, or progress, not regret. And here's the surprising truth. Discipline, far from limiting your freedom, becomes the gateway to it. Because when your money is aligned with your mission, you stop wasting energy. You stop chasing false pleasures. You stop cluttering your life with noise. What remains is power. What remains is momentum. What remains is a version of you who respects every resource, because you finally see how precious it is. And that is when wealth begins to compound. Not just in your account, but in your character, in your mind, in your results. And all because you made a decision most people avoid. You looked at your spending. And you faced the truth. Let's get brutally honest. Most people don't have a money problem. They have a happiness confusion problem. They think more spending means more joy. More stuff means more satisfaction. More treats mean more self-love. But the truth? Most of what they spend on is a numbing mechanism. A band-aid. A temporary hit of dopamine that fades fast and leaves behind clutter, mentally, emotionally, and financially. That's why one of the most powerful filters you can apply to your money is this. Does this make me powerfully happy? Not distracted. Not entertained. Not momentarily excited. But deeply, lastingly, unapologetically fulfilled. And if the answer is no, then it's not worth your time, your energy, or your money. Napoleon Hill talked about definiteness of purpose. He said that all success begins when you know clearly what you want and direct every thought, habit, and action toward it. That includes your finances. Because when you spend on what doesn't align with your purpose, you're not just wasting cash. You're weakening your direction. And here's where it gets transformative. When you apply that happiness filter to your expenses, everything changes. Suddenly you realize you don't need 5 streaming services. You don't need to buy new clothes to feel worthy. You don't need to dine out to treat yourself when peace and clarity feel better. You begin to choose with discernment. You become a curator of your life, not just a consumer in it. You invest in fewer things, but better things. You pay for experiences that leave a mark, not just a receipt. You save, not out of fear, but out of reverence for your future self. And the deeper result? Your emotional state becomes richer, even if your possessions become fewer. Because what you cut out wasn't making you happy anyway. It was noise. It was marketing. It was habit. And when that noise is gone, you finally hear the sound of your true desires. This is where your identity as a wealthy person begins to form. Not when you have 7 figures in the bank, but when you choose like someone who already values their time, money, and soul too much to waste it. You become selective, intentional. You stop buying to prove something. You stop spending to distract yourself. You start asking a more powerful question than, can I afford this? You start asking, does this multiply my joy, my energy, or my future? And if not, You let it go with zero guilt. That's how millionaires think. That's how leaders act. That's how wealth is built, from the inside out. Because every time you spend money on something meaningless, you're robbing the version of yourself who could have used that same money to elevate, to train, to grow, to create. So stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like a conscious investor, not just of your dollars, but of your entire life force. And when in doubt, return to the filter that never fails. If it doesn't make you powerfully happy, cut it. Because that's not sacrifice. That's alignment. That's self-respect. That's how real success begins. There's a hidden tax that's draining your wealth. It's not inflation. It's not interest rates. It's not even bad investments. It's emotional spending. The spending you do when you're stressed. The impulse you follow when you've had a bad day. The little rewards you give yourself that turn into habits. This is the invisible enemy that Hill would have warned you about, not because it's about money, but because it's about mind control. Let's be clear, every purchase you make under emotional pressure reinforces something dangerous in your subconscious. It tells your brain, when I feel low, I spend. When I'm anxious, I buy. When I'm uncertain, I seek comfort in consumption. And here's what happens over time. You stop growing. You stop building. You become a master at avoiding discomfort, instead of facing it and transforming it into power. Napoleon Hill said, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." But when you numb the adversity with Amazon, takeout, distractions, or cheap dopamine, you kill the seed before it has time to grow. So let's reframe what real wealth requires. Wealth isn't about how much money you can make. It's about how much power you can hold in uncomfortable moments, without breaking, without reacting, without wasting your energy or your cash. It's about delayed gratification, the most powerful habit in wealth creation. Every time you say no to the easy purchase and yes to your long-term vision, your brain rewires. Your discipline sharpens. Your confidence grows. And confidence is the most valuable currency you can carry. Here's the challenge Hill would give you. The next time you feel an urge to spend on something you didn't plan for, pause. What am I feeling right now? What do I actually need? Will this purchase solve it, or just distract me? Most of the time, you'll find that what you really need is presence, not a product. You need to journal, to breathe, to go on a walk, to face what's actually happening in your life, not cover it with packaging. And when you make that shift, your money starts obeying you instead of your emotions. You move from reactive to strategic, from consumer to commander, from someone who leaks power to someone who stores it, builds it, and multiplies it. That's what self-made means. Not just building a business or increasing your income, but mastering the battlefield inside your own mind. Because every dollar you save by not giving in to emotional spending isn't just about the number. It's about the person you're becoming. Strong, calm, clear, and unshakable. That energy, it compounds. It creates space for real wealth to arrive and stay. Hill taught that autosuggestion is the tool of champions. But emotional spending is a form of negative autosuggestion. It whispers to your brain, "You're not in control. You don't have what it takes. You need this to feel better." The moment you reject that lie, the moment you pause, breathe, and choose alignment over impulse, you break the cycle. You become the master. And when you master your emotional relationship with money, you unlock a new level of power that most people will never touch. This isn't about being cheap. It's about being impeccably aligned. Spend when it's right. Spend when it's strategic. Spend when it expands your life, not escapes it. That's not restriction. That's freedom. And freedom is the ultimate return on investment. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Most people are drowning in things they once thought would make them happy. Drawers full of gadgets, closets full of clothes, shelves full of promises, and still they feel empty, disoriented, cluttered, not just in space but in mind. Napoleon Hill warned against drifting. And there's no more common modern drift than that of unconscious accumulation. You don't just lose money when you buy things you don't need. You lose focus. You lose time managing, maintaining, and being distracted by all that stuff. You lose identity, confusing who you are with what you own. That's why true wealth builders operate from a different principle. The less you carry, the faster you move. Strategic minimalism isn't about deprivation. It's about precision. It's about knowing exactly what adds power, value, momentum to your life, and ruthlessly cutting the rest. Let's redefine wealth for a moment. Wealth isn't how many things you can afford. It's how little you need to feel powerful, free, and focused. Because once you stop measuring success by quantity and start measuring it by alignment, everything changes. You begin to look at your home, your schedule, your finances, your digital life, and ask, does this serve my vision? Does this expand me or dilute me? Do I own this, or is it starting to own me? Hill believed that definiteness of purpose was the foundation of all achievement. But you can't be definite if your environment is cluttered with contradictions. So here's what you do. You begin eliminating with the precision of a sculptor. Not randomly, not emotionally, but strategically. You identify what makes you feel strong, what energizes you to build, what supports your highest output, and then you cut everything else. Not with guilt, with clarity. This isn't just about budgeting. It's about mental liberation. Every item you release is a distraction you remove. Every purchase you postpone is a statement of power. Every need you detach from is a new level of autonomy. You don't need to become a monk, but you do need to stop being a slave. A slave to trends, to impulse, to the silent pressure to show the world you're successful, even if it's costing you your actual success. You start living differently. You value white space in your schedule, silence in your mind, simplicity in your environment. Why? Because your best ideas, your deepest clarity, your most powerful creativity, only emerge when there's room for them to breathe. Hill's most successful students were not just rich in bank accounts. They were rich in time, in focus, in peace. That doesn't come from more. It comes from less, but better. You become intentional with every object, every commitment, every subscription, every bill. You start asking, if I didn't already own this, would I go out of my way to acquire it today? If the answer is no, you let it go. And in doing so, you create a different energy. Your environment becomes clean. Your finances become sharper. Your decision-making becomes faster. Because now, you're no longer overwhelmed by options. You're no longer tricked by the illusion of value. You've stopped reacting and started curating your life like a master. This is where real wealth accelerates. Because now, every resource you own is leveraged. Every dollar is a soldier. Every item, tool, and system exists to serve your mission, not distract you from it. And you stop needing validation. Because you feel strong from the inside out. That's not minimalism for aesthetics. That's minimalism as a financial superpower. And most people will never discover it. But you will, because you've already made the shift. From consumer to creator. From buyer to builder. From passive to intentional. And in that shift, the seed of unstoppable wealth begins to grow. There's a point in every wealth journey where something inside you clicks. It's not when you make your first $10,000. Not when you hit six figures. Not even when you clear your debts. It's when you finally take full control. When you stop waiting for more money to arrive and start managing like someone who deserves millions. When you stop reacting to bills and start orchestrating your wealth like a conductor leads a symphony. This is where you stop playing checkers with your finances and start playing chess. Let's be real. Most people run their money with the same chaos they run their emotions. No structure. No clarity. No vision. They earn, they spend, they guess. And then wonder why it never feels like enough. But the wealthy, the truly self-made, they think differently. They build systems. They automate. They track. They plan. And they start early. Not when they're already rich, but when they decide they will be. This is the final habit you need to master. Run your finances like a high-performance business. That means every dollar that comes in has a role. Every dollar that goes out has a reason. And everything you spend either supports your vision or gets cut. You track your income like a CEO. You review your expenses like an investor. You make decisions not based on emotion, but on intended outcomes. This isn't boring. This is freedom. Because nothing feels better than knowing exactly where you are, where you're headed, and how you'll get there. You set clear targets. This is how much I earn. This is how much I keep. This is how much I invest. This is how I grow. You build buffers. You forecast. You protect your downside. Because success isn't just about expansion, it's about stability under pressure. And this is key. You stop outsourcing your financial security to the outside world. No government. No boss. No miracle investment. Just your habits, your focus, and your plan. Hill would call this organized planning, the backbone of any goal. He said, a plan that is weak and vague will fail. But a plan that is definite, tested, and refined becomes a blueprint for power. So build your blueprint. Start simple. Use a spreadsheet. Categorize your expenses. Highlight what's essential, what's joyful, and what's waste. Cut the waste. Double the joy. Strengthen the essentials. Set a weekly financial check-in. Treat it like a board meeting, because you are the board. You are the CFO of your life. And as you refine this habit, something amazing happens. You feel calm. You stop flinching at notifications. You stop fearing tax season. You stop wondering where your money went, because you know. And knowing gives you leverage. Leverage gives you options. And options, that's what freedom really is. This final shift is what separates those who talk about wealth from those who build it. Not more hustle. Not more motivation. Just complete command over your financial ecosystem. Because when you master that, you stop hoping. You start engineering. You become a financial architect of your destiny. And that, right there, is the moment when wealth stops being a dream and starts becoming your default state of being. At this point in the journey, it's no longer just about money. It's about ownership of your life. Because every step you've taken, tracking your expenses, eliminating the unnecessary, defining what truly makes you happy, has led to something bigger than financial gain. It's led you to a mindset shift, a complete inner recalibration. Napoleon Hill didn't write Think and Grow Rich to help people simply get rich. He wrote it to help people transform their consciousness, to turn drifting, reactive individuals into deliberate architects of their future. And you've done exactly that. You've stopped being casual with your money. You've stopped hoping for wealth and started engineering it. That's not something most people will ever do. Most people live in a constant state of reaction. They spend without awareness. They accumulate without purpose. They chase happiness through purchases, only to end up with clutter, debt, and dissatisfaction. But you've broken the cycle. You've learned that control is freedom, that clarity is power, that ruthless elimination of anything non-essential opens the door to deeper joy, sharper focus, and greater wealth. Now, you don't just spend money, you command it. You don't just earn money, you multiply it by aligning every dollar with your purpose. You don't just save money, you liberate yourself from dependency and fear. This is what it means to live financially awake. Because once you become truly aware of where your money goes, where your energy flows, and what genuinely adds to your life, everything changes. You stop being controlled by marketing, social pressure, or emotional spending. You become strategic. You become minimal but intentional. You become the master of your system. That's when money begins to serve you on a whole different level. Not just to pay bills, but to create space, to buy back time, to invest in assets, people, experiences, and projects that expand your life instead of draining it. Let's be clear, wealth is not the same as income. Wealth is what you keep, what you build, what you grow through discipline, vision, and long-term thinking. And that's what you've stepped into here. This journey hasn't been about quick wins. It's been about principles, about real habits that build generational strength, about taking everything Napoleon Hill taught and turning it into action. So now the real question is this: will you go back to your old patterns? Or will you commit, fully, to this new standard you've created? Because this isn't a phase. It's a shift in identity. You are no longer someone who's confused about money. You are no longer someone who's intimidated by numbers. You are no longer someone who lets expenses run wild, hopes for miracles, or plays the financial victim. You are someone who leads, who decides, who plans, who executes. And every time you choose to act like that version of yourself, your financial life upgrades, not just in your bank account, but in how you walk, speak, think, and lead. That's the real prize. Not just financial freedom, but identity freedom. Because when your habits match your values, and your money flows according to a vision, you become unshakable. No external crisis can break you. No economic downturn can stop you. No impulse or distraction can seduce you. Why? Because your internal structure is solid. Because you've built a mind of wealth. Because you've chosen long-term power over short-term pleasure. That's what Hill meant when he said, "Success comes to those who become success-conscious." It's not about what you earn today. It's about who you're becoming through the process. You've now seen what happens when you take your financial life seriously. You've seen the peace that comes from order, the energy that comes from clarity, the confidence that comes from knowing you are in control. So from here, don't slow down. Don't settle. Don't dilute the momentum. Double down. Track tighter. Cut deeper. Align stronger. This is your life. This is your money. This is your moment. Don't let it slip back into chaos. Don't let the old self sneak back in. Don't just learn this, live it. Make this system your baseline. Make these standards your identity. Make this discipline your liberation. Because when you live like this, the results are inevitable. You'll feel richer, long before you reach the big numbers. You'll operate with freedom, even before you retire. You'll create space for what truly matters, not in theory, but in action. And one day, not far from now, you'll look around at your life and realize, you didn't just control your spending. You rewrote your financial destiny. You shifted your legacy. You became the person Napoleon Hill was writing for all along. Now go out there and build what only you can build. Deliberately, powerfully, unapologetically. The tools are in your hands. The habits are in your system. The future is in motion. And it all begins with how you treat every single dollar.